Good morning and good afternoon. Welcome to another episode of Before Coffee. It's been a long weekend for me, and we're about to find out how the rest of the world has been dealing with that. And it's Monday, so everyone's half asleep.
Yep.
All right. Today on Before Coffee. Tenerife wildfire started deliberately as blazes in Greece force evacuations.
A Russian space probe crashes into the moon.
Orphaned by decree, Italy's same-sex parents react to losing their rights.
We update Tropical Storm Hillary.
The Netherlands and Denmark to donate up to 61 F-16 fighter jets to Ukraine.
And we talk about the BRICS Club of Emerging Nations today on Monday, August 21st, 2023 edition of Before Coffee.
I have no idea. It is the 21st. You're correct. You got the date right. All right. Let's go ahead and get into our first news story of Monday. Let me breathe and breathe out because I always forget to breathe during these after the intro. The wildfires in Greece have forced evacuations. This is from John Henley, the Europe correspondent on The Guardian. An out-of-control wildfire on Tenerife has forced thousands to flee. Was started deliberately, authorities have said, as 4 more villages in Greece were evacuated in the face of another advancing blaze. More than half of the mainland France was on extreme heat alert. As much as southern Europe continues to roast after July was named the world's hottest month on record, the Canary Islands regional president Fernando Clavijo said on Sunday that police had confirmed the blaze raging on the Spanish island since Tuesday had been lit intentionally and had opened 3 separate lines of inquiry. Firefighters had earlier said a slight improvement in weather overnight had allowed them to prevent any homes from being destroyed, with weather conditions being better than expected. The island's governor, Rosa Davila, told a news conference on Sunday that more than 12,000 people had been evacuated. As of Sunday night, the blaze had burned through more than 8,400 hectares or 20,800 acres of pine forest, about 4% of Tenerife's surface area, Davila said, adding that the figure was likely to be much higher by the end of Sunday. No injuries had been reported and no houses burned so far. But the fire described as the worst in Tenerife, I keep on saying it differently every time, Tenerife, in decades, is still threatening 11 townships on a steep and craggy mountainside with difficult access for firefighters. Clavijo said the night had started very hard, with many telephone calls saying the fire was very close to people's homes. It was almost a miracle that no homes had been destroyed, he added. After accounting for 40% of the land, land burned in the EU in 2022, Spain is again the EU state most affected by wildfires this year, with 75,000 hectares burned ahead of Italy and Greece, according to the European Forest Fire Information System. In Greece, authorities evacuated another 4 villages near Alexandroupolis, close to the country's northeastern border with Turkey. On Sunday, a large wildfire that had already forced people from 8 villages to flee drew dangerously close. Strong winds whipped up the flames, and civil protection authorities warned of an extreme fire risk on Monday in the region around the capital, Athens, and the other parts of southern Greece. The country's Minister for Civil Protection, Vasilis Kikilias, asking for extreme public vigilance nationwide. No outdoor work that could trigger fire will be permitted, he said. We must all protect our country. Greece has erred on the side of caution since a 2018 fire killed 104 people in a seaside resort near Athens that had not been evacuated. In France, extreme temperatures were likely to continue until at least Wednesday in 49 of 96 mainland departments. Meteo France placing the areas on a level orange alert. Oh, sorry, departments, because it's French. There was an accent over the E. The mercury is forecast to rise about 40% or 40 Celsius. The mercury. The temperature. Why did they say the mercury? I was really confused what they were talking about. The mercury is forecast to rise about 40 Celsius or 104 Fahrenheit in Lower Rhone Valley. The forecaster said the exceptional early morning temperatures were recorded in southern cities including Lyon, Perpignan, Marseille, Carpentras, and Montélimar, with 27 Celsius registered in Nice at 5 a.m. local time, or 400 hours BST on Sunday. The late season heat wave was due to a vast anticyclonic zone transversing every level of atmosphere that is imprisoning already hot air and reheating it by compression, rather like a bicycle pump, it added. So there's a lot of pressure. Scientists have said that such heat waves and other extreme weather events are likely to start earlier and finish later in the year, recur more frequently and last longer, and be more severe as global heating advances. So the world is ending. Apocalypse.
Bit extreme.
Get your signs out, guys, and start, I don't know, screaming on the road corners. Yeah, keep an eye out. Or keep a nose out for smoke. Don't worry about your material possessions because you can always get some more. And they're not that important anyway. And just can't appreciate them if you're dead.
Just try not to start any fires.
Yeah, don't do anything that would start a fire. Your news story.
Okay, so in a short story. Russia's Luna 25 spacecraft crashes into the moon, ending its bid to reach the lunar South Pole. This is from the Associated Press, and just says world news here. Okay, so that's it. No person's name on it. Russia's Luna 25 spacecraft crashed into the moon after it spun into an uncontrolled orbit, the country's Roscosmos Space Agency said Sunday. The pilotless spacecraft was aiming to be the first ever to land on the south pole of the moon, an area where scientists believe there could be important reserves of frozen water and precious elements. It had been expected to land on Monday. However, Roscosmos said it lost contact with the Luna 25 on Saturday after the spacecraft ran into difficulties and reported an abnormal situation. The apparatus moved into an unpredictable orbit and ceased to exist as a result of a collision with the surface of the moon. And that's their official news agency's report. The Luna 25 was launched in a race with the Indian spacecraft launched on July 14th to be the first to reach the South Pole. Both were expected to reach the moon between August 21st and 23rd. Vitaly Agorov, a popular Russian space analyst, said despite the crash, the mission had some success. Luna 25 showed important progress. It flew toward the moon, carried out orbit correction, and tested onboard electronics and scientific tools, he said via video call. It even managed to collect some small scientific data during the flight from the lunar orbit. It also sent photos of the moon. Russia cosmonautics was not at this level before, but then an error occurred somehow. The lunar mission was Russia's first since 1976, when it was part of the Soviet Union. Only 3 governments have managed successful moon landing: the Soviet Union, the United States, and China. The lunar South Pole is of particular interest to scientists who believe the permanently shadowed polar craters may contain frozen water in the rocks that future explorers could transform into air and rocket fuel. The previous Indian attempt to land at the South Pole in 2019, the thing about rocket fuel, you don't need rocket fuel in outer space. The moon doesn't have enough gravity. You can just basically just use a slingshot and escape its gravity. Rocket fuel. A precious Indian attempt to land at the South Pole in 2009 ended when the spacecraft crashed into the moon's surface. Roscosmos said it wanted to show Russia as a state capable of delivering payload to the moon and ensured Russia's guaranteed access to the moon's surface. Igorov said Roscosmos needs the experience of landing on the moon. It will not be able to talk with China on equal terms because China has already 3 successful landings on the moon. Roscosmos has none, he said. Roscosmos will lag starkly behind the Chinese lunar program. Sanctions imposed on Russia since it began its actions in Ukraine have affected its space program, making it more difficult to access Western technology. The Luna 25 was initially meant to carry a small moon rover, but the idea was abandoned to reduce the weight of the craft for improved reliability, analysts said. The craft launched from Vostochny Cosmodrome in Russia's Far East on August 10th. The spacecraft is a pet project of Russian President Vladimir Putin and a key to his efforts to make Russia a space superpower. And there's the story. As Russia fails to maneuver a spacecraft and it just went poof.
Yes, they're not going to be a space superpower, whatever that means. Because I have no idea.
Smash the fly on your windshield. Your story.
Okay. Bad news in Italy, but are we surprised at this point with right-wing PM Giorgia Meloni demanding councils register only biological parents on birth certificates, leaving partners in legal limbo? This is from Ashifa Kassam, the European Community Affairs correspondent. Whether it is school runs or doctor visits, Maria Silva Fiengo and Francesca Pardi have always shared in the raising of their 4 children. But in recent months, after Italy's right-wing government began cracking down on the listing of same-sex parents on birth certificates, the life they had forged together has been thrust into uncertainty. We're a bit worried. You never know what is going to happen, said Fiengo. Our children have had 2 parents from the very first moment they were dreamed of and brought into the world, but were not protected by any law. Following the birth of their children, she and Party spent years battling legal recognition, butting up constantly against the absence of a national law setting out parental rights for same-sex couples. In 2018, the City Council of Milan offered up a lifeline, telling them it would begin listing parents in the same gender of their children's birth certificates. It was really beautiful, said Fiengo. It gave us strength. Our family felt more secure. According to the country, a handful of councils were quietly doing the same, transforming the lives of same-sex parents. Their elation, however, was short-lived. This year, the Italian government, led by Giorgia Meloni, a hard-line traditionalist who has long reiterated her view that a child should only be raised by heterosexual parents, began demanding that councils register only the biological parent. The mayor of Milan, Giuseppe Sala, said he had little choice but to comply. In the northern city of Padua, the state prosecutor went further, demanding that the 33 birth certificates issued to children of lesbian couples be changed to remove the name of the non-biological mother. A court is expected to rule on the request later this year. When is Italy getting kicked out of the EU? Like they're breaking into the Human Rights Convention that they have to agree with when they join. Maybe they want to leave. Is it? I don't even know how you say that. Texit. A rights campaigner warned that the move had plunged hundreds of families in Italy into legal limbo. Protests sprung up across Italy and around the world, and opposition politicians slammed the move. These children are being orphaned by decree, said Alessandro Zan, a gay politician with the Democratic Party. This is cruel, inhumane decision. A European Parliament called on the Italian government to reconsider its stance. What was taking place in Milan was a direct breach of children's rights, said the UN. MEPs noted in the amendment to the 2022 report, part of a broader attack against the LGBTQI+ community in Italy. At issue are the sweeping ramifications of allowing only one parent to be legal, said Angelo Schillaci, a law professor at Rome's Sapienza University. It's a nightmare for the parents as well as for the children, he said. The second of the two fathers or mothers cannot do practically anything, from taking the child to the doctor or picking them up from school, without the authorization of a legal parent. At times, even this is not enough. Even with authorization, for example, they can't make healthcare decisions related to saving the child's life. Yeah, and if for some reason, your partner, who's the legal guardian of the child, dies tragically, the child can just be sent off to some other family somewhere. Because you're not the legal guardian. You have to go through the entire adoption procedure to have your own child that you've been raising with somebody else. Because, you didn't give birth to them, so they're an orphan now. You don't have any legal parameters for this child. And I think that has happened in some countries as well. The risks for the family are enormous. If the legal parent dies, they become seriously ill, the survivor has no rights to children. Meanwhile, the children can become wards of the state or handed to other relatives. While some have cited adoption as a potential workaround, Schillaci described it as a complicated fix that can take years to wind through Italian courts. What we need is a law that recognizes same-sex parenthood, said Schillaci, because right now the lack of any such law allows for a series of discrimination and violations of children's rights. It's appalling. The crackdown on same-sex parents has cast a spotlight on Italy's ranking among the world's worst countries in Western Europe when it comes to LGBTQ+ rights, and added to fears that the meager standing could be eroded under Meloni's government. This ban is one of the most concrete manifestations of the fury that the right-wing majority is unleashing against LGBTI people. Gabriele Piazzoni from RCGA, Italy's largest LGBTQ right groups, told media earlier this year. Italy legalized same-sex civil unions in 2016, but stopped short of allowing gay couples the right to adopt, amid opposition from right-wing parties and the Catholic Church. IVF is banned for homosexual couples in Italy, while the Italian parliament recently approved a bill that sets out fines for up to €1 million and prison sentences up to 2 years for Italians who go abroad to have children via surrogacy. Right, we talked about that. Really ridiculous. So much for open borders in the EU when you can just, did you go to Germany to get IVF? You're going to jail and you have to give us €1 million. The government has defended its actions to limit the listing of gay parents on birth certificates, arguing that the move helps protect them from their feelings getting hurt. Just kidding, that's not what it was. Which echoes ruling from Italy's top appeal court will not prevent children from accessing schooling or medical services through their one legal parent. There is no discrimination against these children, the family minister Eugenia Rossella told Parliament in March. Bengo described the government's move as underpinned by ideology, 100%. They politicized something that doesn't need to be politicized. Otherwise, what's the problem? There are 2 men and 2 women who love each other, she said. Since Meloni, everything has started to become difficult and more difficult than before. While she was holding out hope that her children, who ranged from age 14 to 21, were too old to have their birth certificates revised, she lamented that the other same-sex couples would now be denied the same rights. Their children aren't going to be protected as they should be. If they were a heterosexual couple, they would be registered. So it's a question of justice and equality. So there you go. That's the news from Italy on how they're, if you're LGBTQI, well, actually probably if you're asexual, you're probably fine.
The acronym just a bit longer.
Yeah, I call it the alphabet mafia, though I think that some people use it as a slur. But I use it as a retaking of the word alphabet mafia. I'm part of the alphabet mafia. I mean, I'm not even in I'm not even in it. I'm pansexual and I'm not even in it. I'm the plus. So imagine how I feel. I don't even get to be in the alphabet.
Far be it for what I think people should want to be called, but what's wrong with queer? It's part of LGBTQ. It's already in there, so let's just say queer. I mean, just cover a lot of it. And if it's not a slur, it can't be a slur. It's an LGBTQ. It can't be a slur.
Yeah, we've retaken the word. That's what supposedly. So
if you just keep adding letters to it to include more people, it's going to be this long. and nobody's going to say. So what good is it? It just becomes a cumbersome thing that people.
Yeah, this has been an argument since like 2012. So
you're going to wedge people to get you to think you're their way. They're not going to. They're not going to embrace a big long acronym. It's hard to say. That's just the way it is, man. I'm sorry. It's like making people change everything they think overnight.
But that's not what they're complaining about. They just see gay people as a threat to their society or whatever.
Oh, I dropped the story. I was talking about something totally different.
Oh, okay.
I mean, well, that's not what they're talking about. It's what I'm talking about. But the person has to read things that stumbles over them all the time. All right, here's the latest on Tropical Storm Hillary, who became a tropical storm before it even hit the United States. It was basically down to Category 1 before it even made landfall, I think. I mean, real landfall. Hillary weakened to a post-tropical cyclone early Monday after pummeling. This is from New York Times. Sumya Karlamangda and Karina Knoll of the New York Times. Hillary weakened to a post-traumatic cyclone early Monday after pummeling Southern California with rain over the weekend, but meteorologists warned of the continued potential for life-threatening flooding generated by the storm. Hillary, the first tropical storm to hit the area in more than 80 years, was expected to dissipate later on Monday after producing up to additional 4 inches of rain across parts of California and Nevada. A flash flood warning in Los Angeles County expired overnight, but one remained in effect until 5 a.m. local time for parts of San Bernardino County, where forecasters warned of low water crossings, and poor drainage that could make roads impassable. Parts of Inyo and Mono counties near the border with Nevada were also under flash flood warning for several more hours. There were no immediate reports of deaths or injury, but fire crews in Los Angeles rescued at least one person from a vehicle stranded in rising waters. Schools were shut down on Monday for hundreds of thousands of children because of rain. You can imagine that. But the University of Southern California, which reported only isolated flood, the school, it's August. What's going on here? But the University of Southern California, which reported only isolated flooding, said Monday it would begin the fall semester on Monday as scheduled. Okay, so it's the beginning of school. The heaviest rainfall around midnight was in the San Bernardino counties, where the mud and debris blocked some roads. Officials also ordered some residents to evacuate. Forecasters continue to warn of catastrophic and life-threatening flooding in parts of the Southwest and Baja California. Here's what else to know. 3 cities in California, Cathedral City, Indio, and Palm Springs, said 911 lines were down. Officials in Los Angeles said there had been reports of at least 150 tree-related issues in the city, as well as downed electrical wires and 17 minor mud flows. The minor mud flows, that was a good punk band. Remember them? They were really hot. More than 60,000 customers were without electricity in California. The storm, with maximum sustained winds of about 35 miles an hour, was about 390 miles north of San Diego on early Monday. Just as the first bands of heavy rain fell in Los Angeles on Sunday afternoon, a 5.1 magnitude earthquake, unrelated to the tropical storm. Oh, it's unrelated. Oh, okay. If you're reporting on earthquakes and hurricanes, and you got to tell people that they're unrelated, we live in a messed up time. There were no reports of major damage or injuries, but the estimated 12 people live in the affected area because the 5.1 earthquake is not a big deal in California. I'm not sure why they're even considering it.
Have you ever thought about adding water to that situation and seeing how that might not be a good combo? I don't know.
Unstable ground, right? Yeah, I got it. Governor Gavin Newsom of California declared a state of emergency in several counties in the south, including Los Angeles, Orange, and San Diego. The city of Indio. The good thing about California, the counties are huge, so they don't have as many as like San Bernardino County is ridiculously huge. Before Hillary reached the United States, it battered Baja California and Mexico, where one person died and one was missing. But Mexico's President Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador posted in Spanish that fortunately there was not much damage. And that's about it, except we have an update of 3 named storms in the Atlantic. So Emily, Franklin, and Gert have been named. So we're getting closer to Nigel. Your story. We're up to Gert. We're up to Gert in
Very
the
close
Atlantic.
to getting to Nigel.
The Pacific is
Okay.
up to H. Is up to H already, but the Atlantic is just now getting to G. So that's why Hurricane Harold, I believe, is the one for the Atlantic and H's. So they have
Harold.
different name conventions. Yeah. Still making
Okay.
plans for Nigel. Your story.
In news from Ukraine, this is from Dan Savage in Kharkiv. The Netherlands and Denmark have announced that they will donate up to 61 F-16 fighter jets between them and Ukraine once the pilot training has been satisfactorily completed. As Volodymyr Zelensky visited both countries after months of entreaties to bolster the Ukrainian Air Force, Denmark's Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen said Mette Frederiksen said her country would provide 19 jets, hopefully 6 around New Year, 8 more next year, and the remaining 5 in 2025. Please take this donation as a token of Denmark's unwavering support for your country's fight for freedom, Fred Eriksen said. Mark Rutte, the Dutch Prime Minister, did not put a number on the Dutch donation, but said the Netherlands had 42 in its Air Force. The country was already in process of replacing them with more advanced US-made F-35s. Today, we announced that the Netherlands and Denmark commit to the transfer of F-16 aircraft to Ukraine and the Ukrainian Air Force, Rutte said at a joint press conference with the Ukrainian president at an airbase at Eindhoven. The jets would be handed over from the existing stockpiles once the conditions for its transfer have been met, he said. A clearly pleased Zelensky released a photo taken of himself and Rutte in front of an F-16 and was later filmed getting into the cockpit. In social media postings, he added that he had reached an agreement to strengthen Ukraine's air shield. Oh yeah, what a cute picture. They're looking at each other, like the front and the back, right? And they're going, hey, we're in a F-16 together. Ready to shoot down some missiles. Clearly pleased, Zelensky released a photo taken of himself. Oh wait, we did that one. Unlike Rutte, Zelensky appeared firmer on the number he expected to receive from the Netherlands. Mark Rutte and I reached an agreement on the number of F-16s to be transferred to Ukraine. Once our pilots and engineers have completed their training, he wrote, 42 jets, and this is just the beginning. Yeah, he's just like, why not give me all of your jets? If you're replacing them with F-35s, just give me all of them. What's the problem? F-16s will not be transferred until pilots and ground crews are properly trained. The process will take 6 months for learning pilot skills, plus another 4 months for the pilot crews to learn technical English that is a required standard. As a result, the Western fighter jets are not expected to be ready to fly combat missions in Ukraine until well into 2024, by which time the war could have been going on for 2 years. However, Sunday's announcement means there is a firmer timetable and commitments to the transfer of F-16s than ever before. Progress on transferring F-16s to Ukraine had stalled over the early part of the summer, until last week when it emerged that the US had sent a letter to the Dutch and Danish governments making it clear they would support the transfer of jets to Ukraine when the training program was complete. Zelensky said the planes, which Ukraine had been asking for since the early stages of the war, would help strengthen Ukraine's air defense and help its slow-moving counteroffensive. Aircraft can speed up the process, he said. We are speaking about air defense because we have the winter ahead of us, and we understand more than anyone else in the world what winter without electricity is like, the president added. Ukraine has a smaller air force, which is made up of Soviet standard planes that can only run a dozen or so low-risk combat missions a day because they are outnumbered by Russian equivalents. Although Moscow uses its own jet relatively conservatively in frontline areas, the size of its air force means it poses a far greater threat. On Saturday, Ukraine's Defense Minister Oleksiy Rezunov said on national television that pilot training had already begun. Rutte, however, said on Sunday that military training will start up in the very near future. Although it's possible Reznikov was referring to the English language lessons that are seen as a prerequisite. Yeah, they're just like, well, since they need English to be able to fly the jets, we're just going to say they started a training, okay? They've learned what escape pod means in English, okay? We're ready to go. I'm sure Ukrainians aren't that bad with English. Right? They can't be that bad.
I don't know, man.
What do I know? I've never been to Ukraine, so. And we have a couple of Ukrainians living here, but I have not spoken to them, because, well, they're all in one place, right? And it's scary to like go to a place where they're all standing there or living. Even it's their house. You can't just walk into their communal housing situation and be like, "Yo, you guys know English?" That's a bit weird for me to do, so I haven't got up the courage to do any of that outreach, I guess. But I'm an introvert, so I'm never outreaching. That's one of my weaknesses.
Well, you're not the diplomatic corps for the country either. So
no.
You're supposed to,
The only I can relate to is that I'm a fellow immigrant, but I know English, so.
Okay. Is it my story? Or?
Yep, your story.
Okay, so here's a story from the New York Times, notable for the number of people who are writing it in the byline. This is from David Pearson, Lindsay Chudel, Jack Nikas, Alex Trevelli, and Paul Sohn. So 5 people wrote this article, and it's about the BRICS Club. Have you heard of the BRICS Club? Well, you're about to. A group of nations known as BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, BRICS, represents 40% of the world's population and a quarter of the world's economy. Now it's considering expanding in a push to be seen as a credible counterweight to the Western-led forums like the G7 group and advanced nations. But the challenge for the club is that it is a divergent as it is large and hindered by sometimes conflicting interests and international rivalries. It compromises the world's largest authoritarian state, China, its largest democracy, India, economies big and small, and relations with the United States that run the gamut from friend to foe. China, under Xi Jinping, wants to expand BRICS, seeing it as a platform to challenge American power. Russia is keen to demonstrate that Moscow has loyal allies despite its isolation from the West over the war in Ukraine. India, locked in a territorial dispute with China, is wary of Beijing's dominance in the club. Well, that's going to be a problem. The 2 biggest countries in the club are like, that piece of land is ours. Doesn't seem like it's going to work that well. Brazil and South Africa, the other swing states in the developing world, want good relations with China and Russia, but not to be overly aligned with either for fear of alienating the United States. They know where their bread is buttered. As leaders of the 5 nations meet starting Tuesday in an annual summit, this time in Johannesburg, they might navigate those differences might determine whether the group becomes a geopolitical coalition or remains largely focused on financial issues such as reducing the dominance of the dollar in the global economy. The task of finding common ground is only getting harder as the great power competition between Beijing and Washington intensifies, placing pressure on the other nations to choose sides. And as Russia's war in Ukraine grinds on, as the conflict is rolling, food and energy prices for many of the poorer countries that BRICS members claim to represent. China, under Xi, is looking to use BRICS for its own purposes, particularly in extending its influence in the global south, said Steve Sang, the director of the SOAS China Institute in London. India is highly unlikely to go along with it as long as the Chinese proposal will turn BRICS into something else which will serve primarily Chinese interests. Dozens of countries expressed interest in joining the club. They include countries that fall squarely in the Chinese camp, like Iran and Belarus, and non-aligned states such as Egypt and Kazakhstan, reflecting a desire to hedge between China and the United States in the face of geopolitical polarization. Geopolitical polarization. The question of expansion will be laying the agenda of the 3-day summit to be attended in person by President Xi of China, Prime Minister Narendra Modi of India, President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva of Brazil, is way too many names, and President Cyril Ramaphosa of South Africa. President Vladimir V. Putin of Russia is expected to take Mark remotely because he's probably dying of cancer. Go cancer! Mr. Putin, who has wanted to international court that has accused him of war crimes, had earlier planned on attending in person. He decided against it, sparing South Africa the dilemma of whether to arrest him. South Africa has to arrest him if he shows up in their country. China, which was the biggest economy in the group, which holds significant clout, will want to use the club to show that Beijing has its own circle of influence after President Biden held a summit strengthening alliances last week with Japan and South Korea, nations in China's backyard. Did you know China has a backyard? It's a real nice one. Big old grill. Feeds a billion. Beijing thanks the rapid expansion of BRICS, which would also allow China to argue that its widespread support for the developing world. The Global South is not happy about the G7 trying to represent them, so they're voting with their feet to join BRICS. They're voting with their feet. You know, you can still vote with your hands, right? Oh, it's a metaphor. All right, never mind. Said Henry Wang, president of the Center of China and Globalization in Beijing. It's one of them metaphor things. India has signaled that it prefers a more cautious approach that would limit Beijing's ability to use BRICS club to confront the West. It will want to avoid diluting its own role in favor of countries that might pick China over India in any tussle over influence. India's divergence from China reflects wider tensions and distrust between the two countries that were inflamed by the deadly border clash in 2020, as we remember, and by India's participation in security grouping with the United States, Japan, and Australia called the Quad. India has emphasized that it is open to enlarging BRICS in principle, but wants to develop standards for deciding any new members and ensure that any changes are based on consensus. Brazil has similar position and acceptance of new members. If they comply with the rules that we are establishing, we will accept their entry, President Lula of Brazil told reporters this month. Some of the requirements likely to be discussed include a minimum population or gross domestic product, as well as willingness to work with the bloc's new development bank, said one Brazilian government official who's helping plan for the talks is not authorized to speak publicly and spoke on the condition of anonymity. And this goes on for another few paragraphs. South Africa bowed to Western pressure when it asked Mr. Putin to attend the summit virtually because of his arrest warrant, but the country is still trying to assert itself, defying what it sees as arm twisting from the West to isolate Russia. Zahir Lahir, an official in South Africa's Foreign Affairs Ministry, went so far as to liken Russia's isolation to cancel culture. Well, they didn't invade a country, dude. South Africa, the last country to join the bloc in 2010 on China's invitation, will also have to walk a fine diplomatic line with its allies in the West. In the coming months, South Africa will turn its attention to its second largest trading partner after China, the United States, hosting a meeting about a continental trade agreement. It almost feels that South Africa, the heart of the East, the money is the south of the West. South Africa is the heart of the East and money is the heart of the West, said Gustavo Carvalho, a researcher for South African Institute of International Affairs. So there you go. South Africa trying to walk that fine line.
Walking that fine line between... Wait, aren't these guys war criminals?
Yeah. Well, American presidents are being considered war criminals. Russia can't say the same thing. Yours...
Yeah, even...
I mean, it's South Africa. In South Africa.
Yeah. Even though there should probably be some Americans who were tried for war crimes. But it's okay.
I said the current president of the United
Yeah, the current
States.
president, yeah. Some past presidents, though, questionable. Anyways, let's not talk about that. Let's not get into the... Are Americans above the law? We don't know. In cultural news, sad news. Very sad news. Internet dog Cheems, known for many memes, is dead. That's right, the bonk dog. If you've ever seen a really sad Shiba Inu dog, like, he's dead. He's died. But dogs do die. But he's gone to meme heaven. You probably didn't know his name, but chances are you've seen him pass by on social media. Meme dog Cheems, the animal which appeared in countless images, died in surgery last Friday. Memes are pictures with often funny texts that are shared online. Was this article written for like 80-year-olds? Probably. It's a European article, so Europe has a very high aging population. But they had to explain what memes are. What's a meme? What is this? Let me put my reading glasses on, not to make fun of you. Tell me, what is a meme? I've never heard of these things. Are they jokes?
Meme. That's a nice meme.
Meme. Cheems was often depicted seated. Other dogs of Shiba Inu breed are also often used as memes. The dog, whose real name is Balsa, had cancer for some time. He fell asleep on Friday morning during his last surgery, writes his owner on Instagram. The plan was to get him chemotherapy or other treatments after surgery, but it's too late now. Don't be sad, continues the owner, who lives in Hong Kong. Please think of the joy Balsa brought to the world. A Shiba Inu with a round smiling face connected you and me and helped many people through a pandemic. Balsa resembles another well-known dog of the same breed, which appears even more often in meets, Kosovo. The dog can even be seen on the battlefield in Ukraine. Kosovo is also a symbol for Dogecoin, a popular cryptocurrency. But that animal is not doing well either. Kosovo has liver problems and leukemia, but would be on the mend. The two dogs feature on the memes together. Kosovo, the Doge, is often depicted as a shrug figure, and Balsa, Cheems, is a weaker counterpart. The example here is Bones in the 90s. And it's Doge, he's like chunked up dog with like a dog head, a huge neck. I'm the smartest material known to man. My battery has unlimited power, and it says Nokia on his chest. And then it says Bones in 2020, and then it's Cheems, and he's like he's a dog, and he's sitting, and he's going like this. Oh, I did a bed, and he's had little tears coming out of his tear ducts. And it has an Apple logo on his chest, and it says, "Please don't touch me, or I'll crack. I haven't been charged for 3 hours. I'll commit die." So that's a meme format that uses both the famous dogs to display kind of like the strong one and the weak one. And Cheems, which is the weaker counterpart, unfortunately has passed away. But his picture will live on so long that Balsa will not be even remembered for his name. He'll just be called Cheems, or I guess the weak dog meme. I didn't even know I had a name, to be honest, but when I see it, I know what it means. It's like it's kind of funny when we talk about memes, because I've seen this joke before, like for years now. But we started with like ancient Egypt, right, using hieroglyphics to mean words, right?
Right.
Then we moved on to script, where we use letters to create words to create meaning. And now, in a way, especially in the internet culture, we reversed it back to, you see an image, you know exactly what it means, you know exactly what it intentionally is trying to say, all from an image, just like hieroglyphics. So, in a way, memes are, I guess, a primitive form of communication.
Well, yeah, they had not invented some. Was it not the? Who invented the alphabet? Was it? Somebody had to.
An Arabic country, I believe.
Everything was a pictograph.
Yeah.
All right, so on to this day in history. Yep. 1808, British General Arthur Wellesley used his thin red line and infantry to defeat French General Andoche Junot's forces at the Battle of Vimeiro, leading to the British control of Portugal. So that was during the Napoleonic Wars. 1831, Nat Turner began an unsuccessful slave rebellion in the American South that eventually killed 60 people before being stopped by a 3,000-man militia. Go slaves!
Yeah!
In 1858, the famous debates in Illinois between Abraham Lincoln, the Republican Party nominee for the U.S. Senate, and incumbent Senator Stephen A. Douglas of the Democratic Party began. Ironically, 2 years later, the same two ran for president against each other. The animated film Bambi had its theatrical release in the United States, and it became a classic in the Disney canon. Noted for its lush hand-drawn animation and sensitive directive narrative. In 1859, Hawaii became the 50th U.S. state. So we have not had a new state since 1959. It's time to make like 10 more.
No, I think it's good. I mean, Hawaii was a mess up. So
actually make fewer states. Make both Dakotas into one state.
Yeah.
Because the entire population of both states is like one city block in Manhattan.
You should make they should start making certain city blocks in Manhattan states, I think, at this point.
No, that would be stupid. That would be. You can make DC a state and then Puerto Rico a state, though. That would make sense. The romantic drama Dirty Dancing opened this 1987. Starring Patrick Swayze and Jennifer Grey. And it
Nobody puts baby in a corner.
Nobody. Yes, exactly. Speaking of memes, don't put baby in the corner, or Patrick Swayze is going to kick your ass. 1991, Latvia declared its independence from the Soviet Union. In 2017, for the first time in nearly 40 years, the continental United States experienced a total solar eclipse, which was viewed from Oregon to South Carolina. And featured biography today, Count Basie, famous musician, was born on this day in 1904. Featured event, the Mona Lisa was stolen. On this day in 1911, Leonardo da Vinci's Mona Lisa was stolen from the Louvre by 3 Italian handymen.
Oh, wow, easy.
They were really handy. It was not recovered until 1913, and the media sensation helped make it one of the world's most famous paintings. So the Mona Lisa was not as famous as it was nowadays until somebody stole it. So there you go. If you're struggling hard, just have somebody steal your painting.
Yeah.
Of course, you got to be dead
for hundreds
of years. And you also need to be dead for hundreds of years, so it ain't going to help you much. Birthdays today, Usain Bolt, Jamaican sprinter, is born in 1986.
Also
Sergey
mean.
Entrepreneur, turns 50. Kenny Rogers, American singer-songwriter, was born this day in 1938. Wilt Chamberlain's birthday, he was born in 36. And Princess Margaret was born on this day in 1930. She's the British princess, sister to Queen Elizabeth. And what days is it today? It's International Day of Remembrance and Tribute to, and then it says ... tribute to the victims of terrorism. So It's International Victory. Remembrance of Victims of Terrorism. And it's also National Spumoni Day. What's Spumoni? I have to look that up. It looks like ice cream. It's probably very similar to ice cream. National Senior Citizens Day. That's me. And it's Brazilian Blowout Day. Now I have to look up something else. I have to look up Spumoni, and I have to look up what a Brazilian blowout is.
A Brazilian blowout is a type of hairstyle.
Oh, okay. Wait, I thought a Brazilian is when you get your junk shaved.
Okay, then maybe I'm wrong. You get to look it up.
Okay. It could be. Brazilian blowout. It's just basically... Summer weather celebrates beach trips, vacation, barbecues, and carefree attitude.
Okay.
Whatever that means. Hair nightmare.
It's a lifestyle.
It is a hair thing.
Yeah.
Luckily, a Brazilian blowout will calm your teases and allow for embrace the most beautiful self. Well, that's all your days for today in the world. Get that Spumoni and don't get it in your hair.
All right. Well, I guess I wish I could do a Brazilian blowout, but unfortunately, I do not have the skills with a hairdryer to do that. And also, with how long my hair is, I think it will just end up being a giant lion's mane and tangled as hell. Right. So we will see you tomorrow on Tuesday for some more exciting news stories here from the Netherlands and beyond.
And from the United States, where we'll be covering the future news of planet Earth on. But today, that's all for today on August 21st, 2023 edition of Before Coffee. Be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and notify buttons, and follow our other channels, Toxic Alley, History of Gravy, and Scratchy Old Records.